now. Let us bring on Philadelphia's #1 hockey beat reporter. It is Charlie O'Connor, coming to us live from Montreal, Quebec, Canada. Charlie, what were your impressions of the game tonight? I can't imagine they're good.
Yeah, this just wasn't the Flyers' best game. I do think that it was sort of a tale of two halves. I thought the first half, I actually thought defensively the Flyers played pretty well. There were some lapses. There was one play, I don't think they didn't even score on it, Montreal did, but there was one play during 4-on-4 play, I think it was early in the second, where the entire defense just backed in and just gave the entire center of the ice. Like, it wasn't perfect, but on the whole, defensively, I thought the Flyers played pretty well. They only give up 17 shots on goal, so for the third time in 4 games, they've given up 20 or fewer shots on goal, so pretty good. It was just the first half of the game, they could generate nothing. Offensively, they were non-existent. Then, the final few minutes of the second period, they start getting some chances. Primo makes some saves, they missed the net on a few quality chances. And then the third period, I thought they were pretty much all over the Habs. They were the better team by a lot. They obviously get 2 goals past them that both get disallowed, but basically it was just a night where they almost waited too long to get going. Like, if they would have had that kind of pressure for 60 minutes rather than 20, they probably do ultimately break the door down. You know, even if the bounces aren't going their way, they probably get a few goals because there's only so long that you can keep putting that pressure up before finally the goalie wilts. Well, they did it for about 23, 24 minutes. That just wasn't enough time to start getting bounces. They obviously get the 1 goal late after the outcome was really no longer in doubt. But I think generally speaking, the players, while they were obviously disappointed about the outcome, they didn't think they played awful. It was just it took them too long to get to the offensive side of their game. And then they also just kind of didn't get any breaks. Like, you have those 2 disallowed goals. I think they were both correctly called, ultimately disallowed. But, we're talking about like 2 inches on that offsides play. But in an alternate universe where, Forcer stretches his leg back just a little bit further, suddenly it's an entirely new game. So one of those games where the Flyers could have certainly played better, especially in the first half of the game, but also there's an element where it kind of just wasn't their night, and that happens. Unfortunately, this was a night where they could have used it to really gain some separation in the playoff race, and instead everybody just kind of holds serve. It just feels like a missed opportunity to me.
Yeah, it feels like a huge missed opportunity, and the start to this game was so flat. They give up 2 goals in the first, but I think even more concerning, like you said, not being able to get anything going. They ultimately get credited with 5 shots on goal, Charlie. There's a 5+ minute gap between shots number 1 and number 2, and a 9+ minute gap between shot number 4 and shot number 5. That is just absolutely horrible. So I'm looking at what the Flyers' schedule has been. This is their 14th month on the 28th, their 14th game on the 28th day of the month. They've only had
14th month.
Yeah. They've
Feels
only
like
had more than one game or more than one day in between games twice this month. It's been over 2 weeks since they've had more than one day off. Especially considering the stretch of games they just came out of, and you look at that Rangers game, so physically and emotionally draining probably to go through what they did and then ultimately lose it. Do you think they're just tired? Like, what was with the start tonight? Could anyone pinpoint it? Was it something Montreal was doing? Why were they so lifeless to start?
So it's an interesting point, and I thought it was notable that, we talked to John Tortorella after the game, and he said, kind of unprompted, that he felt like the Flyers maybe didn't have their legs in this one. He basically said he didn't really think Montreal had their legs either. Montreal was coming back from a West Coast swing. They played Colorado on Tuesday, I believe, and won that game. He just didn't feel like a lot of energy early. That's what Tort said. And I had a follow-up and was like, look, if you guys are lacking energy, like, the games are going to keep coming. How do you get that energy back? And he basically just kind of said, well, we're going to have to find a way because we got to win some of these games. These are important games. It's going to help that they're playing against Chicago. Like, Montreal isn't a very good team, but they're not nearly as bad as Chicago. Like, the Flyers, the last time they played Chicago, had probably their C+ game, and they still ran away with it. Like, they should be able to beat Chicago, even if they're not at their best. The Islanders is a different story. The Islanders won tonight. They're not a great team, but they're certainly better than Montreal, so they're going to need to have some energy for that one. I asked Garnet Hathaway about it, about how do you guys prevent the entire first half of the game from being an offensive black hole. And he's like, look, one thing that we have sort of established over the course of these last few weeks is that the third period is our best period. And he made an interesting point, which very well could be true. He basically said, I think that part of the reason why the third period is our best period is because over the course of the game, we do wear teams down. And it's an accumulation of the work we've done over the first 40 minutes is why the final 20 minutes tend to be our best. And there's probably something to that. However, you got to have some quick strike goals. Like, you can't have no offense in the first half of the game. That's not going to work. One thing that hurts them in this regard, and obviously this is a problem that's been a problem all year, it's the power play. Like, even if you don't have the energy, if you have a good or a decent power play, you can maybe get a goal when you don't have your legs because you're playing in a half court. The Flyers don't have that. They went 0 for 4 again tonight. They just don't have that power play that can kind of bail them out when maybe the legs aren't there at 5-on-5. And, maybe they're due for a little bit of a run of power play success because they're going to need it. Because if they really are a little gassed, they're going to need to find a way to manufacture goals. They showed it in New York that it's there, but if it takes until the third period for it to really get there, they're going to need to find other ways to get it in the first 30, 35 minutes of games.
Hey, Charlie, JP over here. I want to obviously listen. This city is crazy right now with the Russian goalies, but I want to focus on our Swedish goalie here. 2 goals allowed off the 13 shots. It seemed like there was a problem with the rebounds and controlling the pucks. How would you assess Harrison's night tonight?
I think he was okay. I don't think he was great, but I think he was okay. Obviously, they get 2 empty net goals. So I think I'm looking at his numbers. What was it? He had
13 of 15.
Okay, 13 of 15. I thought the first goal, I'm not going to blame on him at all. Like, that's a slam dunk, off to the side on a power play. I'm never going to blame a goalie on that one. The second one, yeah, he probably could have squeezed that rebound. But I think he was okay. I certainly don't think he was the reason why they lost this game. Like, if you're a goalie and you hold a team to 2 goals, you're giving your team a chance to win. The Flyers had a chance to win this game. They just had no offense for 35 minutes. And then in the final 25, they couldn't buy a goal, or they didn't pay the refs enough to give them a goal. But I don't think that this was a terrible game by Harrison by any stretch of the imagination. Do I think he was at his sharpest? No, I don't. But I don't think he was awful. He kept the Flyers in the game. The Flyers just did not take advantage of the fact that the goalie kept them in the game.
Charlie, this is, on the list of reasons they didn't win tonight, Cam Atkinson dressing is not, for Noah Cates isn't on the list. But it's just something, it was a decision I found a little bit interesting. We talked the other day, one of the mailbag questions about Atkinson potentially getting back into the lineup at some point, and it took, like we said, someone else coming out, not him, working his way back in. I just thought maybe it was a little interesting to go with Atkinson, mostly because Arbor Jackey's in Montreal's lineup, and if you were going to need, just the way the game went tonight, I don't know, Nick Delorier fighting him might have woken them up a little bit. Not that you're oh, well, the team's going to be flat, choice, so I should, dress my fighter. But what'd you think of the decision to go with Atkinson, and what'd you think of him in his return tonight?
Yeah, there wasn't much there.
Yeah.
Well, no, there just wasn't that much there from him. I thought there was one play he made behind the net where you're like, oh, that was a nice little elusive play by Cam Atkinson. Beyond that, there just wasn't much. And, looking at the numbers, it very much backs it up. He had 9 minutes and 40 seconds of 5-on-5 ice time. And in those 9 minutes and 40 seconds, nearly 10 minutes, there was one shot on goal from both teams. When he was on the ice, nothing happened. Nothing happened for the Flyers. Granted, nothing happened for the Canadiens either, so at least it wasn't a liability. But it's just nothing was going on. That's 1/6 of the game where nothing was going on. And as much as I really like Cam Atkinson as a person, that's more or less what I've seen from him over the month leading into this run of scratches, which is he just hasn't been noticeable. Nothing is happening when he's on the ice. He's not doing much. And maybe he's gassed. Maybe he's finished. I don't know. I truly don't know. But this game was not him making a strong case to stay in the lineup whenever Noah Cates, and hopefully everything's okay with Noah Cates and his family. I don't know if this is a good personal issue thing or a bad personal issue thing, because there are both. Like sometimes it's like, oh, he's having a kid.
Wife's
Sometimes
having a kid,
it's,
yeah,
oh,
something like that.
It's like, oh, a family member died. So I really hope it's a good thing and not a bad thing. But
Yeah.
I have no idea how long he's going to be out for. But I don't think Cam Atkinson did anything tonight to, make it known that he should not come out of the lineup. He didn't do anything bad. It's just nothing really happened when he was out there, and that's kind of been the trend for the last month and a half.
Charlie, I want to stay on the goalie position here. Obviously, in Philadelphia, not many Flyers fans may have watched Kaden Primo, but 29 saves off 30 shots here tonight. Like, are we not giving him enough credit, or just the Flyers were just gassed tonight?
Well, I think he was good, and quite a few of the players that we talked to in the locker room gave Primo props. John Tortorella gave Primo props. I thought in the third period he was very good. Now, granted, he did allow 2 goals. Now, neither of them counted, but he did let 2 goals. Well, he allowed 3, actually, because he allowed the one that really did count from Tippett. So he allows 3 goals. 2 of them don't count. So it's not like he was perfect, but he made some big saves. Konechny rips one off the post on a power play. Like, I think he was both good and fortunate. And honestly, like the life of a goalie. Sometimes you are good and unfortunate. He was good and fortunate tonight and gets the win. Primo's, you kind of want to root for him. Like he's a local kid. Obviously, he's the son of Keith Primo. Kind of feels like a missed opportunity that the Flyers didn't draft him. He was a 7th-round pick. He was actually taken with a pick the Flyers traded Montreal. So it does feel like, he should be here. He shouldn't be with the Habs, but he is with the Habs. I wish him the best, and I guess if anybody's gonna shut down the Flyers, at least there's a guy with Flyers ties at the very least. Like that maybe is a little bit of a well, at least it's that. But one thing I did want to ask you guys while I have the floor here, did you guys talk about the play at the end of the second period? Because the players in the locker room very much wanted to talk about that.
I don't think so.
Okay, so this was an interesting little sequence. I'm sure it was shown on postgame. It wasn't apparently shown on the Flyers feed, which is probably why you guys didn't know about it. So the second period ends and the Flyers stay out there for a really long time. John Tortorella is like yelling at the officials. The Flyers players are ticked off. Like it took an extra like 3 or 4 minutes for the team to leave the bench. Konechny stays on the bench for a long time. Like it was very clear they were angry about something. And apparently what it was in that end of period scrum, with time running down, apparently, and I don't know which player because I haven't seen a replay yet. I'm going to try to dig one up. Apparently, a Montreal player on the Montreal bench either slashed or speared Konechny on the hands as he was like going by the bench, and the Flyers were livid about it. Apparently, the officials told Tortorella and the Flyers that like they just missed it. They didn't see it. It was completely like, we didn't see it, so we can't whistle the guy. But you had Garnet Hathaway, Morgan Frost, and Scott Lawton all basically say, like, that was a disgrace, that play shouldn't be in the game, and they hope the league looks at it. Tortorella notably declined comment. He was just like, look, it doesn't matter. But the players were pissed. I mean, this seemed like one where everybody on the Flyers bench felt like it was beyond the pale play. So I was curious if you guys had talked about it.
Yeah, I did see some talk on Twitter about something that wasn't shown on the Flyers feed, but I didn't see what it was, so that's what it was. It's crazy, Charlie. The refs miss that. They miss Armia popping off Lawton's helmet. It's almost like Montreal typical, huh?
Montreal typical.
Yeah,
typical
2 goals
Montreal.
disallowed. They caught those somehow. They caught the offside. They caught the kick, but yeah, just Montreal typical. Chuck, something that's a little bit typical Flyers. Maybe we run with this narrative a little too hard because it's like gambling. You remember your losses, and when things do go, it's like, oh, of course it went that way, But yeah. This season alone, couple of losses to Pittsburgh, one of them huge, in a game that no one even remembers because it was Gauthier day.
Oh, the Gauthier game, yeah.
Couple of losses to Ottawa, the infamous San Jose loss. They lost to Anaheim, lost to Columbus. Now Montreal. Is it a thing that they play down to their competition? Like, we've seen them get up for big games and go toe-to-toe and even beat some of the league's best teams. We come into this one saying, hey, if they play the way they did against the Rangers, they're going to roll, and they just have nothing. Is this, like, an issue for them?
Maybe. I really do think it's more that it kind of speaks to how tough it is for them to play their best game every night. Like, they have to really get up with it from an energy standpoint, from an execution standpoint, to do what the coaches want them to do. Now, the good thing is when they do it, they literally can play with anybody and not just beat anybody. I mean, they can skate with anybody. They can outshoot, outchance. You think back to that Dallas game a few months ago where they just dramatically outplayed one of the best teams in hockey. But if they don't have it, they can also lose to anybody. You know, look at the San Jose game early in the year. Team hadn't won a game. They beat the Flyers. Like, that's the Flyers this year, is that they need to be playing their game. I believe Rocky Thompson even said it in one of his availabilities over the last month that, like, we know our game works. And we know when we're playing our game, we can beat anybody. But if we don't play our game, we can lose to anybody. And that's probably part of it. I'm sure it's easier to get up for games against the top teams. That's probably part of it. That said, like, I don't think they were awful tonight. Defensively, they were real good. Offensively, they were bad for half of the game, and they were good for the second half of the game. They just couldn't really break through until the very end. So I don't think they were horrible. They just didn't have their best game. And I guess that happens. There could be something to the idea that they not that they necessarily sag against bad teams, but just that they don't get up to play against the bad teams the same way they get up to play the Rangers, the Stars, the Hurricanes, the Maple Leafs, things like that. Like, that might be more of the explanation, but it's a worthwhile point. Like, I don't blame you for making the point, because from the outside, I get it. Like, it's a legitimate theory.
Just the last one before stars for me, Charlie. You know, I'm looking at this team and what they need to try to get something going. And we love, you know, what we've seen out of Tyson Forster lately, what we've seen out of Morgan Frost lately, what we've seen out of even Owen Tippett gets to 27 goals, matching last year's total. I'm looking at Sean Couturier, and I'm especially looking at Travis Sanheim right now. I see Sanheim plays under 22 minutes tonight, while Cam York goes over 28. Is I know he's not practicing. Is he just out of gas? Is it more than that? Do you know anything about the status of Travis Sanheim right now? Because I feel like he's got a lot more to give, but it's just not there.
I think it's abundantly clear that he's playing injured, or like playing hurt, however you want to describe it. I said that on multiple occasions. I sat next to Jackie from the Inquirer tonight. We're the only two beat writers on the trip. There were multiple occasions when I'm watching Travis Sanheim skate, and I basically was just like, I don't know what this injury is, but it's something serious, because he just doesn't, like, he's a really good skater when he's healthy. He can fly, and he just doesn't have that gear right now. Like, in short areas and small areas, he's okay, because he's still big and strong, and he's still got the long reach. Like, he can still defend. But that element of his game where he can just fly up ice like a gazelle and fly through the neutral zone, that's just gone. He just doesn't have it. And I have to believe he's playing, you know, whether it's some sort of deep bruise or whether it's, you know, something more serious like a pulled muscle. I don't know. But he just doesn't look like he has that burst. And it was very noticeable, I thought, tonight, that whatever it is, it's taken away the elite part of his game, which is the skating ability. That's just not there. And now he's having to basically play like 70% of himself. So I don't think it's, with Sanheim, I don't think it's a like, well, there's more to give. I think he's giving all he can. I just think right now this is all he can give, which sucks when, you know, he's one of only two like legitimate top four defensemen they have on this team right now.
All right, Charlie, it is now time for 3 stars of the game. I do not envy you with this one, because that's one of the least interesting games I've ever watched. When the officiating is legitimately the only like debatable thing in the game. I don't know how you're going to do this, but that's why we leave it to you. It's time for Charlie's 3 stars of the game, starting off with star number 3.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to give any Flyers a star. It just wasn't – it just wasn't a game where I thought anybody in particular really stood out. 3rd star, I'll give it to Mike Matheson. 3 assists on the night for the Habs. He leads the Habs in ice time with 25 minutes. Solid game for him. 2nd star, I'll give to Nick Suzuki. Finishes with a goal and an assist. Had one taken away, which, yes, it was definitely played with a high stick, but also, like, dude, did you ever try out a career in baseball? Because that was a really cool play to watch. So props to you, Nick Suzuki, on that one. Like, great hand-eye coordination there, buddy. And then your first star is Kaden Primo. And again, I don't think he was like Patrick Waugh level good. There were 2 disallowed goals that, an inch one way or another could have been real goals. He gives up 1 goal to Tippett that wasn't the best goal to allow. But the Flyers came with a big push in the third period. And if Primo doesn't play well, the Flyers easily could have sent this game to overtime. Instead, Primo held down the fort, gave his team a chance to win, and they held on. So I'll give Kaden Primo first star. But yeah, this wasn't a game where I feel like any Flyers really deserved to be any of the 3.
Honestly, no one deserved a star. Maybe Kaden Primo, but yeah, whatever.
You know who deserves stars? We do, for watching the game.
It was tonight.
Yeah,
and
guess
listen,
who's the
I very
star?
much
It's
expect
you.
them. I very much expect them to come out on Saturday and look like a different team, because that's what they've done this year. They've answered every time we've said, "Ooh, it looks like it," but goddamn, this felt like a last year game. Just watching this was a slog. Yeah. All right, Chuck. We will talk to you for Saturday's post game. Enjoy Montreal while you're still there, and then it's Connor Bedard time.
Hey, that'll be fun to watch. See you guys. Have a good night.
We all silly like the mayor.